Let's begin. You operate under a fundamental assumption. It's been drilled into you your whole life, the belief that your connection to people, your spouse, your parents, your kids, is something more, something beyond biology. You've been sold a story by poets, by priests, by every movie you've ever seen, that these bonds are sacred, metaphysical. This is the great myth of human intimacy.
You believe that if your wife walked into this room right now, you'd know her. Instantly. Not just because you recognize her face. No, you believe you'd recognize her soul, an invisible aura, a shared history that transcends flesh and bone. You call this love. You believe in it because it makes you feel stable, secure. It's the cornerstone of your entire emotional world, and it is a lie. You're wrong. And that belief isn't just a comforting story. It's a liability. It's a fairy tale that hides a brutal, mechanical truth. See, you don't know your family because of some magical concept called love. You know them because of a thin, wet bundle of neurons connecting the part of your brain that sees to the part of your brain that feels. It's a piece of hardware, nothing more. And when that wire gets cut, you will look at your own mother and see a stranger. You will look at the person you sleep next to every night, and you will see a spy.
Your connection to other people isn't magic, it's engineering. And today, we're going to examine a catastrophic system failure. We're going to dissect the mechanism that proves intimacy is just a fragile circuit, a circuit that, when it breaks, leaves nothing behind but cold, paranoid logic. This isn't just some medical curiosity. This is the indictment of the romantic soul.
The subject of this briefing is the Capgras Delusion. And let's be perfectly clear, this is not a psychological problem. It is not a metaphor. This is not a software issue you can fix with therapy. It is a specific, diagnosable hardware failure, a physical break, a glitch in the system that turns your home into a house of horrors, filled with perfect, soulless copies of everyone you've ever trusted.
Our primary case file, Madame M. The year is 1923, in Paris. She walks into a neurologist's office, a Dr. Joseph Capgras, with a very specific complaint. The man living in her house, the man who looks exactly like her husband, is an imposter, a double. And over the past 10 years, she claims this has happened 80 separate times. The delusion didn't stop there. It was a cascade failure. Soon, her children were imposters, the police were imposters. And eventually, in the final horrifying twist, she looked in the mirror and saw an imposter too.
We move now from the indictment to the evidence. To understand how a mind can break in such a precise, terrifying way, you have to understand the wiring. This isn't philosophy. This is mechanics. When you see a face you know, your brain sends that information down two roads at the exact same time. The first road is the conscious path. It goes from your visual cortex to your fusiform gyrus. Think of this as your brain's internal database of faces. It asks one simple question. Does this face match a file I have stored? For you, it works fine. Status, operational. But there's a second, unconscious path. The data also goes from your visual cortex to your amygdala, your emotional core. The amygdala's job is to attach a feeling to that face, a sense of warmth, of safety, of familiarity. We'll call it the glow. In a Capgras patient, this second road is destroyed. The first road works perfectly, file match, it says. But the second road is silent. There is no glow. The data is there, but the feeling is gone.
Now, your brain is a logic engine. Its main job is to make sense of the world. And suddenly, it's facing a paradox it cannot compute, a critical system error. On one hand, the data says, this looks exactly like my husband. But on the other hand, the emotional center says, I feel absolutely nothing for this person. These two facts cannot exist at the same time. It's an impossible contradiction. So to protect itself, to resolve the conflict, the brain does the only thing it can do. It invents a story.
This isn't madness, not in the way you think of it. It's the opposite. It's a syllogism. It's hyper-logical. Let's run the diagnostic. Fact A, the visual data is a perfect match. This man looks exactly like my husband. Fact B, the emotional data is gone. I feel nothing. He's a stranger. So what is the only logical conclusion that makes both of those facts true? Conclusion C, this is not my husband. He is a perfect physical duplicate, an imposter. To the brain receiving that broken signal, it's the most rational explanation in the world. Logic without emotion doesn't lead to truth. It leads to this, logical madness.
Let's go back to Madame M. Her doctor noted that she was perfectly intelligent. Her memory for facts and dates was flawless. Her insanity wasn't a floodlight, it was a laser beam, focused on this one devastating glitch. For 10 years, she lived in constant terror. Can you imagine it? You cry for help, and the face of your captor is the face of your husband.
She actually filed for divorce, not out of hate, but because to her, he was just some stranger impersonating the man she loved. In the end, she was institutionalized. She died alone in a prison where all the guards were the faces of her family. The psychological state is best understood with the wax museum metaphor. You go to a museum, you see a wax figure of someone. The details are perfect. Every hair, every pore. It's a flawless replica, but you feel nothing. There's no glow. You know it's just a shell. It's hollow. Now imagine you walk into your own home and your spouse is on the couch, and you get that exact same feeling. Cold, uncanny. You see the perfect shell, but you sense no soul. That is the horror of Capgras. The patient isn't angry at the imposter, they're terrified. Because if there's an imposter here, it means the real person is gone, kidnapped, or worse.
Understanding the mechanism is phase 1. Phase 2 is weaponizing that knowledge. This isn't just an academic exercise, this is operational intelligence. Because the flaw in the system, it also reveals a backdoor.
Research uncovered the critical vulnerability, that broken wire from the visual cortex to the amygdala. It's specific to sight, but the brain has redundant systems. The auditory pathway, the wire from your ears to your amygdala, is often completely intact. This creates a bizarre loophole we can exploit. A patient can see their father and believe he's an android, but if they go in another room and talk to him on the phone, the delusion can vanish. The voice is recognized. The warmth comes back. "Hi, Dad." The audio signal triggers the right emotional response. But the second he walks back into the room, the corrupt visual data takes over again, and the delusion slams back into place. That's not him. That's the robot.
This is the key. The visual pathway is compromised. The face is dead data. But the auditory pathway, that's a clean channel, a backdoor. The voice still carries the emotional signature, the ghost in the machine. To re-establish a connection, you have to bypass the broken visual port and route all communications through the secure audio channel. That is the weapon. And this isn't just about people. This glitch can infect your entire reality. It's a condition called Reduplicative Paramnesia. You can think of it as Capgras for places. A patient in a hospital will insist they aren't in the real hospital, but in a perfect copy built somewhere else. The visual data matches, the beds, the walls, the nurse's station, but the feeling of hospital is gone. Our brains, it turns out, need to feel a location to believe it's real. If you go home and it doesn't feel like home, your brain might just conclude you've been taken to a duplicate.
We now arrive at the final protocol. These are not suggestions. This is a direct operational command. How to anchor yourself to reality when your own feelings betray you. This is Directive 77.
Step 1. The blindfold audit. If you ever feel that uncanny detachment, you must immediately remove the corrupt visual data. Close your eyes, or even better, have the person leave the room and call you. Manually isolate the audio channel. Listen to their voice. Ask them a question only they would know. You are using the intact channel to bypass the broken one. Step 2. Execute a logic override. You must use your prefrontal cortex to dominate the faulty signal. Do the math. What is more probable? That your loved one was replaced by a perfect, undetectable android, or that you've had a minor neurological event? Side with the math. Always side with the math. Step 3. Tactile verification. Engage physical contact. Hold their hand. The tactile pathway is often the third, intact channel. The chemical release from trusted physical touch can force a sensory recalibration. 2 intact pathways can override 1 broken one.
And this is the final, most important warning. This is not a negotiation. You cannot argue someone out of this delusion. If you say, "But it's me," you're saying exactly what an imposter would say. You're just confirming their logic. This is a hardware failure. The worst cases of Capgras end in violence because the patient logically concludes they must destroy the monster in their home. This is a medical emergency. It requires an MRI scan, not a debate. 80. Don't forget that number. 80 different ghosts. 80 non-existent men that Madame M believed had replaced her husband. For years, she mourned a man who was sitting right next to her, begging her to see him. She grieved 80 phantoms while the real man watched her disappear.
You believe your connection is metaphysical. You think your love is bulletproof. It's not. It is a fragile biological signal, an electrical pulse jumping across a delicate wire. And any signal can be disrupted. It can be jammed by a tiny lesion, a bump on the head, or just the slow decay of time. The person you would die for is to your brain just a data file. And if the emotional tag on that file gets erased, they become an object, a perfect hollow copy.
So be grateful for that glow, that warmth you feel when you see a face you know. It's the only thing separating your world from a world of mannequins. It's the only thing keeping you sane.
But it forces one last, disturbing question. When the brain can no longer produce the feeling of love, what is actually left? The feeling is gone. Is the person